Beautiful, rich, glorious rising wherever you are in the world. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to my channel. I'm Mama D and this is my house. And today I am going to be doing a video about reading the energies around you. I'm going to be doing a series of videos, but today we're going to be focusing primarily on the weather. So I'm going to be looking down every so often into my notes because my memory, what with these premenopausal symptoms, girl. Anyway, I'm going to show you how I use the weather to read the energy. As you know, I've been reading tarot for some years now, and the only reason I started to really read tarot was to give receipts. I mean, who am I? Where do you know me from? Look at that. A beautiful look. This has just flown in from the window, and these are the things that I use to read the energy. This is perfect. So we're not going to be talking about nature's beautiful array of symbols and signs in terms of those types of things, but today, like I said, we're going to be talking about the weather. We're going to be focusing on the messages that the weather can give us. It could be for our own lives, it could be for the observation of what's happening in the world. So with no further delays, with no further delays, we are going to start with the rain. We're going to start with the rain. What comes to mind when you see the rain? Comment below. The rain signifies acceptance, surrender, cleansing, grace, and abundance, blessings that are coming that we are not quite aware of yet. We've put it out into the universe, and obviously it's not just about putting your wishes and desires out into the universe. You have to do some stuff too, but we'll talk about that in another video. So the rain generally typifies cleansing. It typifies the releasing of things. Whenever I'm channeling or reading for a client and it's raining outside, I include that in the reading. I include that in the channeling because it really is a significant part of what is happening, not only for the client but also for us as a whole, as a collective. So whenever you have a question about life, and for instance, in the time that you're answering the question, it's raining, there is your answers. It's about acceptance. It's about surrender. You think about the Hangman card. It's about cleansing. It's about God's grace. Think about how important the rain is. And obviously, it's about growth. It's about clarity, because without rain nothing grows. So that's the rain. That's rain. And then next up we've got the sun. The sun is seen as a masculine energy. Right now we are in spring, and this is seen as a masculine energy. The properties of the masculine are to lead, are to provide, are to protect. But the properties of the sun are also to give life. Normally we would think about life-giving in a feminine capacity, but when we think about the sun, everything needs the sun. Every living thing, living, breathing thing, living, vibrating thing benefits from the sun. Obviously, we're going to talk about drought later, when the sun becomes overpowering. But right now, when the sun is sunning and doing what it's supposed to be doing, we are typically thinking about positivity. We're thinking about yes. We're thinking about high vibes. We're thinking about happiness. We're thinking about growth. But as I said, most of all, we are talking about sustainability. Because when it comes to the sun, we know that it's a feel-good energy. When the sun is out, we know that everything's going to be okay. We feel reassured in the sun. We feel happy in the sun. They made a whole song about the sunshine. We love the sun. So do you know when the sun is the most magical? When it's very, very cloudy and you have a thought or a question or something that is bothering you, and the sun just pokes its head out for a moment and then goes back in. That's a big yes. That's what I see that as. If the sun is out permanently, it's always a sign to move forward, to go, to get things done. That's what the masculine energy is all about. So whenever we are thinking about the sun in terms of reading energy, we are always talking about forward movement. We are talking about leadership. We are talking about getting things done. We are talking about motivation, expansion, growth, and sustainability. Those are the main properties and characteristics of the sun when interpreting the energy of the sun. We move on to the wind. Wind is one of my favorite energies to read. Not only is it associated with one of my Orisha, Oya, but it is also one of the biggest signs of change. When the winds of change are blowing, this is a time to celebrate, in my opinion. This is a time to rejoice. This is a time to really think about the changes that you want to make in your life, the changes that you feel that the world should be interacting in. These are the things that you need to focus on whenever it's windy or wind comes out of nowhere. Also, you could be sitting on a beautiful summer's sunny day and all of a sudden you say something or you have a thought and the wind just around you. This is change. For me, wind is also a yes when it comes to any questions that we might have about our life. The characteristics of wind is not only change, but also freedom, clarity, enlightenment, rebirth, creation, individuality. I'm going to cut that part out because I don't really get that. But creation, rebirth, enlightenment, clarity, freedom, and obviously change. These are the main characteristics of the wind. Thunder. When we think about thunder, when I was a small child, used to scare the bejesus out of me. I was always told that it was the wrath of God, stamping up and down at the displeasure of his children. That's what I was always told, that whenever there's thunder, God is upset. Thunder, the characteristics of thunder are rebirth, change, which really delights me because I feel like when it comes to thunder, wind and rain are also associated with thunder. We generally don't get thunder just out of the blue for no reason. There is normally a wind, a storm, some type of rain happening, and we get some thunder. So teamed up with Oya, thunder is typically the Orisha of Shango, the husband and wife that go hand in hand and fight together. So whenever I see thunder, I think of war. I think of destruction. I think of teamwork, because I feel like you see the lightning and then you hear the thunder. For me, that is teamwork. There is a merging of the masculine and the feminine energies taking place whenever I see thunder. That's what I always think. I think about the balance between the masculine and the energy, the masculine and the feminine energy. The main characteristics of thunder are rebirth, change, and the potent cleansing process. So whenever we ask a question and thunder rolls, then understand that there is going to be some type of rebirths. You are on the verge of some type of rebirth, or humanity could be on the verge of some type of rebirth. Now, people need to understand that when it comes to life, death, rebirth process, it's something that is constant throughout our lives. We go through this process on an annual, if not monthly, if not weekly, if not daily basis. This can happen as frequently as we feel the need for change. So whenever we think about anything associated with rebirth, then we obviously think about death. And we think about the fact that something within us or around us, or a thought, has to die in order for us to be reborn anew. Fog represents obscurity and the merging of the worlds, the unseen and the seen. So whenever fog is present, especially if you're observing things that are happening around the world, things that are happening during this ascension process, whenever we see fog, it represents the merging of the worlds of the seen and the unseen, or you can say the third and the fourth, or the fourth and the fifth dimensions. However you want to interpret it, it is giving us an indication that something is merging together behind the scenes. It's almost like a blanket of obscurity, a veil almost. So fog represents behind the scenes, things going on behind the scenes. So whenever you are faced with fog, seen fog, I think it's a trust element. It's something that we need to trust, that there's a change happening, and although we can't see that change or we can't feel that change, nonetheless it's happening, and that we should trust that it is happening for our highest, greatest good. Characteristics of fog: obscurity, merging of the worlds, uncertainty about the future, peace, approaching death, isolation, and a transformation into the unreal. Fog. Lightning. More Oya energy as far as I'm concerned. A liberation of the soul. Divine intervention. You know when you see lightning in the Tower card? Always divine intervention. A lot of people kind of are a little bit apprehensive and a little bit fearful of the Tower card. But in my opinion, it's one of the greatest cards in the tarot, because it means that you're going to be pushed and shifted into something that you were kind of resistant to do by yourself. So the hand of God had to come down and help you, in my opinion. Lightning is also associated with the honouring of the chosen, honesty, truth, and morality. These are the main characteristics of lightning. So whenever lightning turns up in your world or in a reading for you, understand that this is a great thing for you. This is a great omen, and that lightning is never to be feared unless you're struck by it. Okay, hailstones. Hailstones' main characteristics: anger, wrath, endings, destruction, death, and evil facilities. This is what hailstones is associated with. Think about hailstones. Nobody wants to get caught in no hailstones, because especially depending on the size, tin could kill you. First of all, it's always going to cause destruction. It's always going to cause damage. So whenever we see hailstones, whenever we're trying to read the energy, what does hailstones mean? It means destruction. It means evil about. It means that you could get hurt. So if you are thinking of something or have a question and hailstones come out of nowhere, there's your answers. There's the energy. That's the energy that's giving. So we're going to look at some weather anomalies that are not as common, especially not over here in the UK, but we're going to look at them nonetheless. So let's look at avalanches. Avalanches represent complete surrender, because what can you do in an avalanche? When an avalanche appears in the news, understand that it's time for you to surrender. It's complete surrender. It also represents change as well, because avalanches change the whole structure of things. So if we were looking at the avalanche on a world stage, for instance, if there was an avalanche somewhere in the world and we were looking at like, what does that mean for the world, for the collective, we definitely got to look at the change of structures, the change of foundations, things being uncertain and unstable. That to me is what represents avalanches. And then we're going to look at blizzards. Blizzards represent loss of control, disorientation, introspection, and personal power. Blizzards, personal power. When you think about, look at the movie Frozen. I don't remember it that much. I think I've seen it once or twice. But if we think about Elsa in the blizzards, that was a test of her own personal power. If she had the power to see her way through this blizzard, because on the other side we all know what happens. So blizzards represent personal power, introspection, loss of control and disorientation. But you're always, whenever we're feeling those things, especially loss of control and disorientation, is always a test. It's always a test of our own belief in ourselves, in our relationship with the divine. If we trust that we can see our way through this, we understand it's a temporary situation. That's what I get from blizzards. Whenever I think about a blizzard or see a blizzard, obviously I've never seen a blizzard with my own eyes, but you know, I could be watching something and there's a blizzard in the movie, and it can be very, very significant to a possible life challenge that I may be going through, or a life challenge that somebody else I know is going through. Drought. Remember, we talked about the sun and how wonderful it is and how life-giving it is, but it can also be very destructive and cause death and hunger. Now, droughts, whenever we see droughts, I feel like it represents feelings of emptiness, loss of control, lack. That's the energy that I get whenever there is a drought around. And the only drought I've ever seen was on TV, and that was when there was the big drought in Ethiopia, and there was that big concert, Feed the World. That was a big, massive theme and campaign in my lifetime when I was a child. So whenever I see famine, I always see imbalance in wealth, imbalance in resources. There's something that's kind of out of kilter whenever I see a drought. It also represents loss of hope and the lack of creativity. Now, you know, as a creative myself, I have had many droughts in my creativity, even content creation. I can definitely relate to the energy of drought as a creative. But the thing about drought is that it never lasts forever. We have never seen a drought that started and never finished. So always have that reassurance within you whenever a drought comes up for you, whether you see it somewhere or you feel it within yourself. Droughts never last, and somewhere along the line creativity and growth will commence again. So never feel bad when there's a drought, please. Okay, floods. Floods is a violation of natural order. That's the description that has been given on Google, because I had to Google that one. I wasn't sure. I was like, what does floods really mean? Floods is a violation of natural order. And when I saw that, I thought about what happened in the Emirates in Dubai, where they've had unbelievable floods. You've seen depictions, pictures of these floods that really look like doomsday pictures. And when they said violation of natural order, we know that it does not rain in the desert. There could never be a flood in the desert. I did see something that suggested that it wasn't a violation of natural order, when in fact it was natural order, because the desert hasn't always been the desert. The desert was flourishing at one point, and again, this goes back to the drought. It doesn't last forever. So whether we believe that it was artificial clouds that caused that flooding, or it's divine order coming back together and restoring because once that water recedes, what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be vegetation, there's going to be new life. So floods, again, it can mean destruction, and it can mean confusion and madness, but it can also mean cleansing. And with that, we will get new growth, new vitality, new thoughts, new inspiration. Floods don't necessarily mean destruction. Okay? And then we've got heat waves. And again, I had to Google heat waves. So heat waves represent suffocation, lethargy, and exhaustion, and depression. Now, and intense emotional pleasure. So whenever heat waves come about, they can either be, I think with every weather anomaly, when we're trying to read the energy, a heat wave can bring for some excitement and for some dread and doubt. You know, personally, when I see a heat wave, I'm excited. I believe that I'm about to regenerate myself through the sun. I believe that as long as I'm hydrated and the vegetation and plants are hydrated, then we're good to go. We're good to go with a heat wave. So, but I can also see how it can represent suffocation and exhaustion and lethargic energy, because we are very tired when it's hot. We don't want to do much. We don't have a lot of energy. So I feel like in heat waves, if we are reading it as energy, then it can be the energy of rest. It can be the energy of pulling back a bit. It can be the energy of doing less. It can be the energy of stillness. But it can also be the energy of celebration. So again, it's just how you interpret it, and there is no correct way to interpret all of these energies. I think that you just have to use your own discernment and your own intuition and instincts as to what it's relating to at any particular time for you. Rainbows. Now, rainbows have got to be one of my favourite anomalies in the weather, because we're still not very clear about what they are. We are told that it's the reflection of the rain and with the sun and all these things, and we generally see rainbows as half circles. But if you see a proper rainbow, a proper rainbow is an entire circle, which gives me portal vibes, which gives me change, hope, something that's going to take us from one space to another. Now, remember when Queen Elizabeth was pronounced dead and there was this double rainbow over Buckingham Palace, which I saw with my own eyes. We've got to remember that this is now another port. That was a portal letting us know that one era or one age has died and another is coming through. I've also witnessed a pink rainbow, a completely pink rainbow before. And again, that was letting us know that the heart chakra and the third eye chakra had merged here in the UK. And this was also the signal to humanity and everything else that was living and breathing with intelligence, that change was upon us and that we had to usher in this new age. So to me, portals are always, rainbows are always portals of change. Whenever a rainbow is witnessed, there is a portal of change taking place, maybe for you or maybe for us as a collective. In some cultures, it's also seen as gateways, bridges from one thing to another, very similar to portals. So it says here, it's a bridge between man and the divine. It gives it's almost like a telephone line between us and the divine. Whenever we see rainbows, this is a perfect time to get into meditation, to speak and pray over yourself and your loved ones. Speak your desires out into the open, write them down. Whenever a rainbow is seen, this is a perfect time to really get into communion with the divine. And then it says it also represents the number 7. And as we know, 7, the energy of 7 represents spirituality, the spiritual realm. So again, like I said, this is a perfect time to get into meditation, into prayer, into journaling. Whenever a rainbow is seen, it's a potent energy for change and also for manifestation. Tsunami. Tsunamis are depicted as a sign of surrender. Yes, whenever we see a tsunami, we see a lot of chaos. We see a lot of disruption and destruction. But it is also time to surrender to these things. Whenever, just like lightning can do exactly the same, but this is an indication and a sign for us to surrender, for us to not, we can't be in control. You can't fight against a tsunami. So the best thing for you to do is to float, is to go with the flow. It sounds crazy because I don't know what I would do in an actual tsunami. But whenever a tsunami is seen, whether you see it in a movie, whether you see it in another country, this is a sign of surrender. As a collective and as individuals. Finally, got wildfires. Something spreading like wildfire. Wildfires are normally indications that in our time that there's climate change, that there's too much heat. So therefore a wildfire is started. But what we have seen, those of us who are intuitively clear about certain wildfires, the last wildfire that I think we witnessed as a collective was the ones in Australia, if I'm not mistaken, which was probably around 2020, 2021. 2020, I'm going to say 2020, we saw wildfires. And I believe with all of my heart and soul that they were created by man in order to remove people from their homes. But I'm mistaken. That wasn't the last one we saw. We saw Maui just recently with wildfires, and we learned that these wildfires were created so that some rich people could take up that land and build underground bunkers and such. So in recent times, wildfires represent greed, represent destruction, represent illegal runnings. It can even represent evil. However, in traditional indigenous tribes, wildfires represents regeneration. It gives an opportunity for things to be burnt down and for new to grow in its place. It's the life, death, rebirth process again. When we think about wildfires, also renewal, so again, they can be interpreted in both ways, for negative and positive. However, traditionally, wildfires were depicted as positive change, whereas in modern times, whenever we've seen a wildfire, we already know that it's got something to do with somebody's pockets getting fatter. So that is how I read the energy of the weather. And I hope that this video has been helpful and gives you some type of suggestions and indications on how to read the weather for yourself in order to determine the energies and the climate of a certain situation. If this video has been helpful, please like, subscribe and comment below, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you.